Welcome back. We are beginning the removal of this engine, and I thought I'd share something here. Some people, when I've pulled engines in the past, I think if you've been paying attention for a while, you remember the last time I swapped the engine in the probe. It took me a week, but that was only spending like an hour and a half each night on it. And people ask, wow, how do you get that stuff done? Because some people are really intimidated by pulling an engine, because you should be. And the secret really is you make a list, right? So we've got a list, and these are all the things that need to happen to get that engine out of the car. And I've got a line here. Everything above the line is stuff that happens while the car is still on the ground. So that's all the crap that I get to take out of the top. And then everything below the list are the things that happen underneath the car. And why do you do this? Well, when you make a list, you can order everything in the right order. You can figure out what you need to do first, second, third, fourth, last, and that saves you time. Because if you just kind of go at it haphazardly, you'll be crawling out from under the car, up and down over and over and over again. You waste a whole lot of time, and you lose track of where you are when you have to take a break. Which, I have a day job. I don't do this all day. I could pull this motor in a single day if I had a single day of 6-7 hours to just get it done. But I don't have that much time. I've got a couple hours here and a couple hours there. So you make a list. There's the list. Right next to the parts list for the probe that I've made that I haven't started ordering. So we're going to get started on the list. And when we're done with the list, the engine will be hanging from the crane over there. So let's get moving. Let's take a look at our list. We've got everything down to engine harness, and we've actually got most of that. Everything's disconnected on the front of the engine here. We've got some grounds back there that need to be disconnected. This needs to be undone, but we're going to wait for right now, because to get to all of that, these heater lines need to be out of the way. Well, they don't need to, but it's much easier when they're gone. I'm not disconnecting those till I get the coolant out, which I'm not doing till I get the car in the air. So we have basically, we are ready to jack the car up in the air and then crawl underneath it and do the stuff that needs to be done underneath. And that is the end of what I'm going to do today. Now, the impact of the list. This took an hour. When you know exactly what you're going at, boom, boom, boom. We'll keep going. Okay, we're out here, day 2. Things we're going to do right now, we're going to get it in the air, we're going to drain the fluids, and we're going to pull a bunch of crap out of the bottom of the car. Okay, we've got an hour in, and it doesn't look like much, but a lot has changed here. We've gotten the fluids drained out of it, the oil and the coolant. We have undone the coolant lines. All the electrical connections are out. The heater core lines are removed. What we have left to do before we can pull the motor is the oil cooler lines down there. Kind of hard to see, it's really dark. And then we'll undo the motor mount bolts and slide the engine off the transmission. Oh, we also got the torque converter bolts out, so it's pretty much ready to go. Back at it. Big thanks to my friend Chris. We've got the engine out of the car. So now we get to take the intake manifold off, and we got to get this head off and see what is going on. Nothing remarkable in here, which is good. Look here, see? This is nice and clean, which is awesome. I don't see any indications of head gasket failure here. These kind of rivets kind of bow out there, just because they do. So, but we do have right there. That looks like we might have had something there. That's, you know, of course, this is a steel gasket. Oh wait, there we go, right there, right there. Got some damage there. Definitely something blew right there and resealed, because this cylinder looked okay. It was this one that was reading low. So we definitely lifted this head and damaged this. So the big question is, where did all that go? It's probably in the pan. Obvious what happened here. We blew the gasket there. We blew it there. It's slightly damaged here. The pistons look good. Get a paper towel, clean that water out of that piston before we get into the, fucks the rings up. Get that soaked up here. That out of there. We got some water. We'll fire this up. This is gonna be loud. I gotta blow out the use compressed air to blow that water out of that cylinder. Okay, we got the coolant blowing out of the cylinders, and we've wiped it up, and you can see where this gasket had failed. You know, we got some heat damage to the iron, but you know, that's some carbon buildup from where the combustion gases were leaking, and then you can see right here that's where it was getting into the coolant jacket. And then over here, this one blew here, but then the gasket resealed, and that's kind of why we like to use these Cometic multi-layer steel gaskets, on these engines, because when stuff like this happens, most of the time the gasket actually sits back down and reseals the engine, and that's what happened here. We don't have any damage to the tops of the pistons. The crowns look great. So what we're going to do now is we're going to get the dial indicator. We're going to run these pistons up and down, and we're going to check their height against the deck to see if any of the rods are bent. These are all the same deck height. The connecting rods are not bent. We do not have internal damage to this engine, which is awesome. So basically, this is going to be a gasket job. I am going to go ahead and we're going to get this side off too, just to be sure we don't have any damage hiding here that we haven't seen. And then I'm going to call my parts guy and get some gaskets. And all right, got the other one off, and you can see here we blew this one too, but not as bad as the other side. These piston crowns look fine. I'm going to blow the water out of here and we'll call it good. We'll get some new gaskets on order and get this block cleaned up, and you know, it's going to be reverse of disassembly, right? Right. Okay, the motor's in the hole, and let's see if I can show you what we had to do here. It is attached to the transmission with two bell housing bolts, but if you could see down there, I don't know if you can, if I can reach it, we had to unbolt the motor mounts from the block in order to get it to wiggle and line up with the transmission. But it's lined up with the transmission, so now we got to finagle it up and down with the crane, get those blocks, get those bolts in. Who's that? Well, got a phone call. Let's see who it is. Oh, yeah, Hilo, Hawaii. Let's see what scam this is. Hello? Aloha? Aloha? Nothing. Anyway, we got an engine back in the car. Now, we still have to torque everything. I only have 2 bell housing bolts in. I need to get the other 4. But I'm stopping here for the night because I'm tired. That thing's heavy. A lot of work. So we're gonna take a break. When we come back, we'll probably have all that torqued up. Okay, it's the next day, and we have the engine still where it was, but what we've done is all of the motor mounts and the transmission bell housing bolts have all been torqued. So that sucker is in and not coming out. The next thing we've got to do is some fuel line stuff. And back at the time trials, well, not time trials nationals, but a time trial event early in the year, we had a fuel line failure, and so we had to replace the fuel line at the event, and we had to replace it with what we could find. And as you can see, this thing's way too long, right? I had it kind of tucked around and spiraled in. So while I got it all apart, I need to shorten this up because it actually goes over here into the fuel rail right in this spot. So the ideal routing is kind of around here and then down through that little gap right there and then out over to the frame rail, and that way it's clear of all the accessories. You don't have to worry about the thing getting cut. And then of course this is the return line. It comes out of the regulator here. I've got to cut this line and put a new fitting. Now these are these funky nylon hoses, and they use a ferrule based connector, and I need a new one of these because this thing it doesn't come off. These don't come off. So I'm gonna have to cut it over there and throw that bit away, and I need a new one of these. So we may be stuck here for a few days while we try and source one. We'll see. So even as we try to reassemble things, we have to take some stuff apart. We've got this stuff kind of starting to run. We got the crank sensor reconnected. This bracket's bolted on. We made new fuel lines, and we've got a return right here, which the jacket's pulled out, but I think it'll be all right. We'll have to check that for a leak. And we rerouted the supply over to here. Now this actually used to run up the front of the engine through here into there, and this is a kind of a danger. There's lots of spinny things here that like to cut fuel lines, so we moved that around. There's some heat shielding on the back, and we also got a new fitting here, so we're dash 8 straight in instead of that giant. Well, I still have some washers stacked here, but that should seal. And then we while we're in here and we have all this room over there to work, we had a leaky power steering situation, and here it is. And what it is this is a piece of heater hose. I don't know why I put it on the car when I did, but if you use heater hose for power steering, what happens is the power steering fluid eats its way through the hose, and you have basically an 18-inch long leak. So I need to go get me some actual power steering rated hose in this size 5/8 and get that repaired and buttoned up while we can still get to it, and then we can keep on going. Welcome to the underside. We had to pull these cables down. These go to the starter motor positive post, and then here's the wire from the battery, and all goes there once the starter's back in. But while we're under here, we're going to go ahead and bolt the torque converter to the flywheel. There's the torque converter. We got 3 bolts, and it's kind of incredible that 3 bolts and the friction they generate from clamping to the flex plate are all that transfers power from this engine to this transmission. It is just bizarre, but somebody way smarter than me did the math, and I'm sure it's fine. It's made it this far. So let's get these on here. This is always a pain in the butt because you can get them started, and of course spinning the engine around against compression is a pain. I'll probably loosen the spark plugs to make that easier, and then torquing these is always a bitch one-handed because this wants to spin, and while you're trying to get a torque wrench on it, so you got to kind of get in here with one hand and a hand on a screwdriver lodged in here and get it done. So let's try and see how much I can cuss at this. Tell you what, that went easier than that's ever gone for me, and I was even laying on my back and not using a lift. So I'm gonna stop for tonight, and we'll pick this up tomorrow because I'm about to run out of luck.